Like to call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please take roll call attendance?
Madam Chair,
Here.
Senator Archambault, Senator Raptakis,
Here.
Senator Burke,
Here.
Senator Oyer,
Here.
Senator Lombardi,
Here.
Senator Casada, Senator Rogers,
Here.
and Senator Archambault.
Here.
Members present, there is a quorum.
Thank you. If we could stand at ease for 1 second, we have some technical difficulty. Thank you for your patience. Committee members, we have 12 bills on the agenda for consideration this evening. I would like to address those first before we begin the hearings. First is Senate Resolution number 15 by Leader McCaffrey. This resolution is to approve and publish and submit to the electors a proposition of amendment to the Constitution of the state, procedure to fill vacancy in office of the Secretary of State, Attorney General, or General Treasurer. Do any members of the committee have any questions? May I have a motion to pass Senate Resolution number 15? Thank you, Senator. Moved by Senator Raptakis, second by Senator Oyer. All those in favor, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Senator Archambault,
Yes.
Senator Raptakis,
Yes.
Senator Burke,
Yes.
Senator Oyer,
Yes.
Senator Lombardi,
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
There are 7 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
I'm here, Senator Casada.
Senator, do you want to weigh in on your vote?
Yes.
And that's a yes for Senator Casada. For the record, Senator Casada is present for the committee hearing, as well as Senator Jessica De La Cruz is present.
Thank you, Chair.
And the vote is 8-0, and it passes to the floor. Okay. Second bill up for consideration is Senate Bill number 57, also by Leader McCaffrey. And that one is an act relating to elections, general state offices. Do I have any questions by committee members? Seeing none, may I have a motion to pass, please?
So moved.
It's moved by Senator Archambault and seconded by Senator Raptakis. Mr. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Senator Archambault,
Yes.
Senator Raptakis,
Yes.
Senator Burke,
Yes.
Senator Oyer,
Yes.
Senator Lombardi,
Yes.
Senator Casada,
Senator Quesada?
Yes.
Senator Rogers,
Yes.
and Senator De La Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
The vote is 9-0, and it passes to the floor. Thank you. Third is Senate Bill number 59 by President Ruggiero. We have a sub-A on this bill. May I have a motion to indefinitely postpone Senate Bill 59 and bring forward to the committee Senate Bill 59 sub-A?
Chair Oyer moves.
Chair Oyer moves that, seconded by Senator Archambault. Mr. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Senator Archambault,
Yes.
Senator Raptakis,
Yes.
Senator Burke,
Yes.
Senator Oyer,
Yes.
Senator Lombardi,
Yes.
Senator Casada,
Yes.
Senator Rogers,
Yes.
and Senator De La Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
Thank you. And the bill is properly before the committee. This act would establish a statewide public safety computer-aided dispatch record management system. The sub-A, the RMS proposal is being sought because the current RMS used by local law enforcement is technologically obsolete, and this proposal is simply migrating to a newer RMS system with a different vendor, with the support of the Chiefs of Police Association. Just to give you a summary of the Sub-A, it revised to resolve separation of powers issues all throughout the bill, revised to include final dispositions as records that will be included in the RMS. It revised to clarify that the rules, regulations, and policies promulgated pursuant to this chapter must follow the APA, which is the Administrative Procedures Act. And it was revised to ensure accessed and stored information was subject to the same process as disseminated information, and also revised to require the privacy policy include maintaining an access log. And I believe that's it. Do any committee members have any questions? Seeing none at this time, may I have a motion to pass Senate Bill 59, Sub-A? Moved by Senator Oyer, seconded by Senator Archambault. Mr. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Raptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada. Senator Rogers.
Yes.
And Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
And the vote is 9-0. It moves to the floor. Fourth bill up for consideration is Senate Bill number 60 by Senator Golden. This bill right here is an act relating to elections, Rhode Island campaign contributions and expenditures reporting. This bill has passed the Senate for 2 years now, and if you remember, it would permit campaign funds to be used to pay all child care expenses that are incurred as a direct result of campaign activity. Do you have any questions from committee members? Seeing none at this time, I have a motion to pass Senate Bill number 60. So moved by Senator Oyer, seconded by Senator Rogers. Mr. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote?
Madam Chair.
Did you raise your hand, Senator Rogers? Oh, okay, I stand corrected. That was Senator Jessica De La Cruz seconds that motion. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Raptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
No.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 8 in the affirmative and 1 in the negative.
The vote is 8-1 and it passes to the floor. Fifth is Senate Bill number 264, and that's by myself. We have a Sub-A on this bill. May I have a motion to indefinitely postpone Senate Bill 264 and bring forward to the committee Senate Bill 264 Sub-A? Motion made by Senator Archambault, seconded by Senator Quesada. Mr. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Raptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
And Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
And the bill is properly before us. If you remember, this act would require employees of regulated financial institutions to report suspected financial exploitation of elder adults to the Office of Healthy Aging and provide authority to the regulated financial institutions to place a temporary hold on transactions. Together with the advocates, we decided to remove the term "the department" from 2 sections. The department refers to the Office of Healthy Aging, which is referred to as OHA. Our elder abuse laws place certain constraints on the OHA's ability to share investigation information with the public. OHA also does not have forensic investigators, and as a result, they do not have the authority or expertise required to place financial holds on accounts. So in order to best serve the purpose of the statute and remain within the OHA's authority and skill set, we removed OHA, which is referred to as the department, from 2 specific sections in the law, which is line 27, page 3 of 6, and line 11, pages 5 of 6. Does anyone have any questions from the committee? Seeing none at this time, may I have a motion to pass Senate Bill 264 Sub A, moved by Senator Archambault, seconded by Senator Oyer. Mr. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Raptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
The vote is 9-0 and it passes to the floor. Our sixth bill on the agenda for consideration is Senate Bill number 392 by Senator Frank Lombardi. And this bill is an act relating to property condominium law resale of units. The act would allow a condominium association to impose a fee of up to $125 for preparation of a resale certificate. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none at this time, Senator Lombardi moves passage of this bill, Bill number 392. May I have a second from Senator Archambault? Mr. Clerk, may I please have a roll call vote?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Raptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada. Senator
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
And Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
9-0, and it passes to the floor. Our seventh bill up for consideration is by Senator Burke, an act relating to domestic relations marriage licenses. It repeals the provision of law granting minors the ability to obtain a marriage license and will require a person to be of full legal age, at least 18 years of age, to obtain a marriage license. Any questions from committee members? Seeing none at this time, motion made for passage by Senator Burke, second by Senator Archambault. Mr. Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Raptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
The vote is 9-0, and it passes to the floor. Our eighth bill up for consideration today is by Senator Demario, Senate Bill number 412. An act relating to human services, abused and neglected children, requires the Department of Children, Youth, and Families to report all suspected cases of child sexual abuse to the Children's Advocacy Center. Do I have any questions of committee members? Seeing none at this time, may I have a motion for passage made by Senator Archambault? May I have a second, please? Seconded by Senator Oyer. Mr. Clerk, may I please have a roll call vote?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Raptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
And the bill passes to the floor. Our ninth bill up for consideration is Senate Bill number 600 by Senator Paolino, an act relating to courts and civil procedure generally fees. It raises the jurors' fees for each day's attendance on the Superior Court from $15 per day to $25 per day commencing July 1st, 2022, and increased $35 per day commencing July 1st, 2023, and thereafter. Do any committee members have any questions? Seeing none at this time, may I have a motion for passage by Senator Gordon Rogers, seconded by Senator Jessica de la Cruz. May I have a roll call vote, please, Mr. Clerk?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Raptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
And Senate Bill 600 passes to the floor. Our 10th bill up for consideration this evening is by Leader McCaffrey, an act relating to aeronautics. The Permanent Air Quality Monitoring Act extends the long-term air quality monitoring program at TF Green Airport to July 31st, 2024. Do any committee members have any questions? Seeing none at this time, may I have a motion for passage? Made by Senator Reptakis and seconded by Senator Oyer. Mr. Clerk, may I please have a roll call vote?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Reptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
Senate Bill 607 passes to the floor. Thank you. Our 11th bill up for consideration this evening is Senate Bill 679 by Senator Archambault, an act relating to domestic relations, solemnization of marriages. It adds the administrator of the Supreme Court as an individual authorized to perform marriages and would clarify that the current administrators of the Superior Court, Family Court, District Court, or Traffic Tribunal are empowered to perform marriages. Any questions by committee members? Seeing none at this time, it's moved for passage by Senator Archambault, seconded by Senator Oyer. Mr. Clerk, may I please have a roll call vote?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Reptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Senator de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
Senate Bill 679 passes to the floor. Finally, our last bill up for consideration is House Bill 5394 by Rep. Cordovan, an act relating to state affairs and government, Preservation of Families with Disabled Parent Act. This is the matching bill to, I believe it was Senator De Palma. It precludes a parent's disability from serving as the sole basis for the state to institute an investigation of the disabled parent's family. Does anyone have any questions from the committee? Seeing none at this time, may I have a motion for passage by Senator Oyer, seconded by Senator de la Cruz. Mr. Clerk, may I please have a roll call vote on that?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Reptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
And House Bill 5394 passes to the floor. Okay, next we have 15 bills scheduled to be heard this afternoon. In keeping with existing virtual protocol for this committee, I would ask for a motion to hold all 15 of these bills before us for further study. Motion made by Senator Archambault, seconded by Senator Rogers. Mr. Clerk, will you please take a roll call vote?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Archambault.
Yes.
Senator Reptakis. Senator Reptakis. Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Lombardi.
Yes.
Senator Casada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
There are 8 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
Very good. And the bills are held for further study. In an effort to utilize both the sponsors and the public's time more efficiently while conducting these hearings virtually, I will ask each of the sponsors, if they're present, to introduce and explain their bills. First on tonight's agenda is Senate Bill 506 by Chair Picard. Don't know if he's on. I don't see him on now, and I certainly will take his testimony should he come on later in the evening. But for the record, I'll introduce, it's an act relating to General Assembly redistricting. It requires for adoption of redistricting legislation an affirmative vote of a majority of representatives and senators voting by each of the 2 chambers and by a majority of representatives and senators in the largest 2 member represented political parties. Okay. Next, let me see if I have. Next is Senate Bill number 537 by Senator Calkin, and I believe that we have Senator Bell who's going to introduce this bill. It's an act relating to the General Assembly Special Commission on Reapportionment. Senator Bell, would you like to introduce this bill on behalf of Senator Calkin?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman. So what this legislation does is sets up our decadal redistricting commission. It lays down several important standards that I think are really crucial to have as part of our redistricting standards. One of these is to ensure equal representation for racial and linguistic minorities. Another one is to ensure compliance with the Voting Rights Act, as well as to preserve communities of interest and allow full public access, allowing the public to submit their own maps. It lays down what are generally standard and broadly accepted redistricting principles, and codifies them in addition to the very standard provisions around the composition of the commission. It's a very similar commission composition to what we've had in previous redistricting cycles, so it isn't a particularly strong change. The primary difference between this legislation and Bill 852 is that it has some additional crucial protections around fair treatment of minorities, compliance with the Voting Rights Act, and several other key protections. With that, I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions for Senator Bell? Okay, I see none at this time. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the introduction.
Thank you so much.
Next, we'll move to Senate Bill 852. This is by President Ruggiero. I don't know if he's joining us this evening. Could you stand by for a second? Do we know if the president is? Okay. All right, we'll introduce that. An act establishing a reapportionment commission. It creates an 18-member special commission on reapportionment whose purpose is to draft and to report to the General Assembly an act to reapportion the districts of the General Assembly in the state's United States congressional districts. Any questions? Seeing none at this time, we'll move to Senate Resolution number 864 by Senator Oyer. Resolution to approve and publish and submit to the electors a proposition of amendment to the Constitution redistricting. Chair Oyer, would you like to explain your bill?
Yes, thank you. So this is a constitutional amendment that I've actually submitted for the last couple years. And it's really intended to establish, well, what it does is it establishes a citizen independent redistricting commission. Just by way of explanation of the process, this bill, because we are in the year where we will have to be doing the reapportionment, and my legislation is actually a constitutional amendment, what would need to happen is that this would not be able to go into effect for the redistricting process facing us immediately, but would be something that I am advocating for us to consider for the next redistricting process. Because basically it would have to go onto the ballot for the public to vote on. What it does is it establishes a 15-person redistricting committee. As members of the public, it would establish that, check for conflicts of interest. So folks who are, related to sitting elected officials would not be eligible to serve. Lobbyists would not be eligible to serve. And the members of this committee would be picked randomly through a lottery type system. Folks would have to apply for it. They would have to be eligible registered voters, and then there would be a lottery system. The redistricting conversation is one that is very high profile national conversation, and it's such a critically important process of our representative democracy. And I think that having additional transparency, additional involvement from the public is a great way to restore confidence in this process for the citizens of the state. So again, I've put this in for a couple of years. My hope was that we would be able to have it in place for this round of redistricting, but since that it hasn't been successful, I'm continuing to advocate for this idea. A handful of states have adopted this model. I know California was one of the first ones who adopted it, and I would have to get the list of the other states for the committee members because I don't have that in my notes right now. But I am happy to answer any questions on this legislation.
Any questions of Senator Oyer? Okay, seeing none at this time, thank you. The next bill will be 194 by Whip de la Cruz, an act relating to state affairs and government energy facility siting act. Senator de la Cruz, you are muted.
Thank you, Chairwoman Klein. So my legislation, I'm submitting this on the behalf of the town of Burrillville, but really it's a piece of legislation that would affect the whole state. There was an instance where a power plant was being proposed to be built in the area, and there were some deficiencies that through the process that were found out. And so this would actually benefit the entire state in any future sightings of facilities. So I will give you just a little bit of background on it, and I'll do my best to answer all of your questions. However, right after me, the Leah Donaldson, who drafted this legislation, was really instrumental, will be able to answer any questions if I am unable to answer them for you. Okay, so some of the highlights and improvements to the legislation. It increases the number of board members from 3 to 5, which is in line with neighboring states in New England. It requires additional information to be submitted as part of the initial application that would help streamline and smooth out the review process and reduce the amount of follow-up information requested. This makes the review process clearer for the applicant and reduces the burden on the local community to request critical pieces of information. It also enhances the pre-conference requirements to encourage information sharing, ensure that the review process steps and requirements are well understood by both the applicant and the host community. It also requires that the applicant to provide information as part of the application. So let me give you an example. A license or a variance would need to be submitted to the EFSB instead of the way that it's done now. It increases the opportunity for public participation and public comment, better notification. Instead of just adjacent properties, it would be properties within the radius of the proposed project. There would be more hearings, and I would also like to point out that a sub-A will be necessary for this piece of legislation because there are some typos. Also, the AG was currently in the legislation as a proposed member, but the AG's office has said that they are not comfortable to be on the committee, so we will need to find a different appointment. Also, we're thinking of perhaps making it a public member that has a specialized background. And lastly, this legislation bifurcates the large-scale projects from small-scale projects. I'm happy to take any questions on this legislation.
Thank you. Any committee members have any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions at this time. Thank you so much for your introduction. Okay, the next bill is by Senator Lombardo, Senate Bill number 254, an act relating to health and safety, refuse disposal, elimination of post-use polymers, and recovered feedstocks used in advanced recycling processes from solid waste. I do not see him on the line right now, but if he joins us, we will allow him to introduce the bill. And I believe we do have members of the public who will be speaking on the bill. Next up is Senate Bill number 520.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. On that bill, I just like a couple of moments, if you don't mind.
Oh, of course, Senator. Please do.
Thank you. Thank you. Some of us, I know the chair knows, but some of us received a contact today from Joan Milas, who represents ACC, it's a National Trade Association, and given the COVID stringent rules in place, for whatever reason, she wasn't able to get her materials or not able to sign up to testify. But those of you that know Joan, she's very diligent and persistent, if you will. And she got me on the phone for about 45 minutes today. So I would urge my colleagues, because she's a consummate professional, I would urge my colleagues to look at the written material that she did provide us. She's been actively involved with ACC for over 25 years. And ACC is a national trade association that represents both chemical and plastic manufacturers in the United States. Things like Honeywell and Smithfield, and ExxonMobil, who helped us during the pandemic. Both big companies helped us in the pandemic. And she points out some rather serious consideration for passage of this bill in the area of global waste, and particularly as it relates to plastics. And the process that she told me, this advanced recycling process, is a proven commercially viable technology that redirects difficult to recycle plastics away from landfills and other traditional disposable options to facilities that safely and efficiently produce derivative products used by petrochemical companies to make new plastics, and supporting this closed-loop plastics economy and reducing traditional fossil fuels. Joan pointed out to me that some of these companies have invested over $200 million in other states that they have been involved in. So, needless to say, she made it very clear to me that this is an important piece of legislation, but more importantly, a viable one, and something that will put us on the right track in terms of how we handle our plastics in our communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Senator. And I believe Senator Lombardo has just joined us. So welcome to the committee. Senator Chair Lombardo, if you would like to introduce and explain your bill, Senate Bill number 254, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for being late. I was in the Commerce Committee meeting, and I did receive your text. As Senator Lombardi had explained, we had 4 chemical engineers and chemical companies willing to testify this evening, but because of a hiccup in her email was sent back to her around 5:45, and she tried to forward it again, and was, because of the rules and regulations that the Senate have in place, was not allowed to testify. So on behalf of them, I'm going to try to do the best I possibly can. So to start, we are in a state of planetary emergency with the environmental problems piling up around us. Unless we address these various issues prudently and seriously, we are surely heading for a disaster. Plastic pollution is currently one of the biggest environmental concerns today. It may seem like a large amount of plastic waste are inevitable in the world we live in, but there is a viable solution. You will hear later from the chemical engineers, and I encourage everybody to read their packet because they are not testifying, but they will explain in detail what advanced recycling technology is. I just want to let you know that all this can be accomplished with less admissions than the food processing facilities, hospitals, colleges, and universities. Shockingly, National Geographic found that 91% of all plastics that have ever been produced are not recycled, representing not only one of the biggest environmental problems of our lifetime, but another massive failure. About 6.3 billion tons of plastic has been generated around the world in the past 50 years. Only 9% was recycled. 12% was incinerated. The rest went into our landfills, rivers, and oceans. Plastic has toxin pollutants that damage the environment and cause land, water, and air pollution. It can take up to hundreds, even thousands of years for plastic to break down. So the damage to the environment is long-lasting. The United Nations estimated plastic accounts for 4/5 of the accumulated garbage in our world's oceans. Plastic have contributed significantly to the massive piles of plastic debris found in our North Pacific Ocean. The plastic garbage pile there, which is nearly double the size of Hawaii, is known as the Great Pacific Garbage. According to the Wild Studies Institute, 80% of that garbage in the ocean originates from land. The new plastic economy report points out that over 8 million tons finds its way into the ocean every year. This is equivalent to throwing the content of one garbage truck into the sea every minute. By that rate, by 2050, the ocean will have more plastic than fish. It is imperative that we start recycling our plastic waste. We need to stop polluting our lands and oceans with plastic before it's too late. And it starts by collecting all the plastic suitable for this new, fairly simple technology, a technology that is available now. And if you read the written testimony by the chemical and advanced recycling companies, you'll understand why and how it's done. We need to change this, and it all starts right here. So by 2050, we can look back and say we changed the course of this issue we had with plastics. The future of plastics could lie in the fuel business. The majority of plastic to fuel, when refined properly, is diesel. This diesel can be used to fuel boats, planes, cruise ships, trucks, generators, machinery, large factories, and even generate electricity. This diesel has a very low content of sulfur, which reduces the negative impact on our environment. This process is called advanced recycling, also chemical recycling. Advanced recycling helps us decrease plastic waste, and it continues progress towards zero waste and sustainable goals for our community and state. Advanced recycling technology does not burn plastic, but they use a thermal energy, heat, but in the absence of oxygen. There is no combustion. And again, I implore you that you read the testimony or the written testimony by the 4 companies. We have one, Brave Environmental, another one, Lauren Plastic Energies, Lauren Vesigal. We have Brightmark, and we have American Chemistry Council, Craig Cookson. And if you give me 1 second, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
There are currently 9 states that have facilities built and operating. Oregon, California, Utah, Texas, Indiana, Ohio, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. With another 9 states who have passed legislation allowing this new technology: Florida, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Oklahoma, Arizona, and Arkansas. One of these statements from Braven: advanced recycling should not be included in the definition of solid waste, and instead should be classified as manufacturing process, defined as processing a raw material or parts into a finished good that uses the tools, human labor, mechanical, and chemical processing. It shouldn't be noted that technologies allow the conversion of plastic in oxygen-deprived environment very much distinct from incineration, which involves combustion of substance in an oxygen-rich environment. Advanced technology recycling will be a crucial component to addressing the national plastic waste challenges. With that, Madam Chair, I'll try to answer any questions that you may have, or the committee has.
Thank you, Chair Lombardo. Any questions of committee members at this time? Okay, I don't see any at this time. Thank you very much for joining us and for explaining your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Next up is Senate Bill number 527 by Senator Verde, an act relating to Health and Safety High Heat Waste Facility Act of 2021. I believe Senator Verde is here. Welcome to our committee. You may introduce and explain your bill.
Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the committee, for the chance to talk to you about this bill. Senate Bill 527, the High Heat Waste Facility Act, is a critical bill for the future health and safety of all Rhode Islanders and our environment. This legislation will prohibit the licensing of waste facilities that use high heat to process that waste. These facilities burn waste using processes known as pyrolysis or gasification. It is sometimes called advanced recycling or waste to energy. But to be clear, there is nothing advanced about it. Lobbyists for the plastic industry would like us to believe that it's a magical process, a miracle of alchemy, that we can somehow evaporate plastic and turn it into fuel. And it's not really burning because it doesn't use oxygen, and that there are no consequences. But it is burning waste, and it is energy intensive, and it emits the same carbon dioxide and toxins as traditional waste incineration, a process that we have banned at our central landfill. As many of you on the committee are aware, there is a proposal to build a pyrolysis facility in West Warwick, just over the East Greenwich line in Senator Burke's district, that will burn mixed medical waste. The proposal is to truck in and burn 70 tons of medical waste, much of it from out of state, every day. And they want to do it in a building that houses other businesses and will be right next to a daycare center and across the street from a school. The opposition to this facility has been intense, and rightfully so. It poses a huge health and safety risk to the surrounding community and all of us in Rhode Island. But it is not surprising. The plastics industry is rushing to get these facilities built all across the country. They are pushing legislation in state houses to allow them to avoid solid waste regulations and to allow them to make more money on the plastic products that they currently overproduce and take no responsibility for. It allows them to distract from the horror of microplastics that we find everywhere. And all the while, the true cost of their plastic is borne by the people, our wildlife, and our oceans. They pretend that these facilities will solve our plastic garbage program and that they create renewable energy, but they will do neither of those things. The truth is that pyrolysis, gasification, whatever it is you want to call it, only justifies the production of more plastics instead of providing a solution to the root cause. The bottom line is we need to reduce the amount of waste we produce. And burning the waste we have to mask the problem is never going to be the right answer. We need to act now to prevent the proliferation of these facilities in our state. Once we open the door to this, it will be really hard to close it. East Greenwich has already spent a lot of time and money fighting this facility, litigating against it, and I don't want any other city or town to have to go through this. Today it's West Warwick and East Greenwich, but tomorrow it could be your community. And we can't allow waste burning to return to Rhode Island. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. We will be hearing from some experts later on if I can't answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Verde. Any questions of committee members? Okay, I don't see any at this time. Thank you for joining our committee this evening.
Thank you.
Next up is Senate Bill number 521 by Senator Demario, an act relating to criminal offenses, trespass, and vandalism. Welcome to the committee, Senator Demario. You may go into describing your bill for us.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. So the idea of Rhode Islanders and having public access to the shore is something that has existed ever since the beginning of Rhode Island as a state back in the 1660s. And I promise you I will not go through all of the legal history from the 1660s, though I could. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. But in our original charter, Rhode Islanders were granted privileges to the shore, which was kind of a big deal at the time because that was something that was unique to Rhode Island. And since then, we have continuously evolved in kind of our understanding and our definition of what exactly that means, having public access to the shore. I'll skip ahead to the 1980s when there was a constitutional convention which amended our state's constitution. And I believe that the amendment received almost 70% of the public's vote to basically enshrine within our state's constitution Rhode Islanders' abilities to be able to pass along the shore, fish along the shore, bathe along the shore, gather seaweed, which if you have ever grown a vegetable garden in South County, you know why that's important. But that we all have the rights to be able to do this. The problem is that since then, this established public access to the shore has not been very clearly defined, and it has resulted in a lot of tension between private property owners near the shore and members of the public who are wishing to exercise their rights. And so the idea here is basically that there exists the equivalent of a sidewalk that runs along the seashore that is available for public passage and use, just like the sidewalk in front of your house might exist. The problem is that unlike the sidewalk in front of your house, the boundary line of the ocean changes a couple of times a day. And the generally accepted property line boundary that has been used up to this point is the idea of looking at the mean high tide line over the last 18.6 years, which if you are a property owner or any old person just walking along the beach is something that is extremely hard to define. How do you know what that mean high tide line is over the last 18.6 years? And so what has resulted over the years is, again, this inability to define exactly where, the public has the right to be able to exercise their rights and pass. And it has resulted in a lot of conflicts where police have been called and people have been charged with criminal trespass. The issue with this is that in none of those cases have those people been found guilty of criminal trespassing, and every single time it's for the same reason. It's basically because there is no way for a person to know if they are breaking that boundary or not, because it wouldn't be kind of common knowledge of where that boundary is. And, so this results in a couple of different issues. And, one of them obviously is that, we have this situation where people are being charged criminally for this. That then also is resulting in a lot of money being paid out. For example, the town of Narragansett, where I live, there was a recent trespass issue where because the person was not found guilty, the person was then reimbursed their legal fees, which were around $25,000, and that is paid out, by the fund, the Rhode Island Interlocal Insurance Trust, which we all pay into statewide. And so this is a waste of taxpayer money to enforce something that is really difficult to define, which brings me to this bill. So the idea behind this bill is to basically decriminalize the idea of being able to pass along the shore within a more acceptably or easily identifiable boundary. So the idea of looking at the most recent high tide line is much easier than understanding what the mean high tide line over the last 18.6 years was. You have, some visual cues there, wet sand, the rack line of seaweed and waste that's washed up, and you can kind of generally accept, like, okay, so this is kind of the side that we can walk and pass along. And so, there are a couple of things that I'm sure you guys have received some testimony and have had people reach out to you. And there are a couple of concerns that I want to address. One is that I want to be very clear. This bill does nothing to change actual property lines. The way that those property lines would be surveyed, and where the property line exists, for the purposes of taxation, sale of a property, those things do not change. That's not something that could be changed by changing this criminal statute. The other concern that I know has been raised is the issue of liability. And so, fortunately, in its infinite wisdom, the Rhode Island General Assembly has already passed the Rhode Island Recreational Use Statute, which basically protects from liability a property owner who is required to, for example, by a statute such as this, or is volunteered to let the public pass for the purposes of recreation. And so, this just doesn't have to do with coastal access. This also has to do with people who abut different types of rights of ways to forest conservation land and things like that. So property owners are actually already protected from that liability. And, so again, the idea here is really to try to decrease the ambiguity that exists, to try to come up with a more kind of peaceful solution to allow Rhode Islanders to exercise their rights to pass along the shore, and to reduce these types of, lawsuits that just end up causing the taxpayers money. I just want to also be clear that civil recourse is also still available to property owners. So just because we're decriminalizing this activity of, again, people exercising these activities in this lane, civil recourse would still be available to those property owners. I am happy to answer any questions that anybody might have about this from the members of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Any questions of committee members for Senator Demario? Senator Archambault.
Hi, Senator Demario. Thank you for your detailed testimony. I had asked you once before in committee, and I'm not sure if you know the answer to this. And I asked this question because, let me preface it by saying, my older brother is going to be retiring soon from Federal Fish and Wildlife. He worked his way up from nothing to a very high level. And when he was in college, URI, getting his master's, he wrote his thesis paper on the public trust doctrine. And I pulled up on my cell while you were talking in Rhode Island what the public trust doctrine is, and I'm just reading from something that came up on Google. But I recall my brother saying that the public trust doctrine comes from old law, and it says that the public has a right to access the shoreline around the whole state. And I would imagine that this applies to the country at some level. But I'm focusing on Rhode Island here. Generally, it says when it comes to determining ownership rights along the coastline, Rhode Island uses a public trust doctrine. The public trust doctrine essentially states that the submerged land is owned in public trust, and the owners of the beach cannot prevent the public from using the land, parentheses, and the water above it. With that said, there's a level above high tide that can't be accessed. And I had asked you once before, and forgive me, but I don't know the answer to, and maybe you do, as to how many feet above the high tide the public has a right to access to, not based on the law you're proposing, but based on the public trust doctrine. And I wonder if you know that answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Vice Chair, and thank you for bringing up the public trust doctrine, because that is an important component to all of this. So it's interesting, again, I've referenced there have been a number of different cases over the years, and one of the units of measurement and kind of where that 10 feet comes from is actually wide enough to drive an ox cart down. So the idea would be that even if the ocean was at high tide, that there would be that lane still available, and the generally accepted width of that would be 10 feet. Granted, we are not in times anymore where people would be driving ox carts down the beach, but the intention of that 10-foot buffer above that high tide line is the idea of just being able to create, again, kind of that reasonable zone where people aren't looking for somebody to step a 1-inch toe over into now that's my property. It's basically just to kind of widen what the acceptable idea would be of people being able to actually pass and exercise their rights, if that makes sense. But I did, your question though also just prompted me to remark on one other thing. I think that there are two ways that this bill can be strengthened. One is specifically, I think, by referencing the recreational use statute, but the other is also recognizing the idea that, depending on the part of the shore that you're talking about, 10 feet above the average high tide line, you might be running into somebody's grass, you might be running into somebody's dock, you might be running into another improved aspect of somebody's property. And we want to be very clear with this, that kind of 10-foot allowance where, we would not be defining that as criminal activity would not in any way include anybody's structures, docks, lawns, it would end at that point. And so that is, I think, the way that this legislation could be improved to be able to define that a little bit better.
Senator Archambault.
Madam Chair, thank you. If I may follow up, and thank you for answering that in that detail. I asked that question because we've all been inundated with emails from private property owners down and along the shore in various towns talking about how they don't want their private property rights to be affected. And I asked the question because regardless of where anyone is on the argument, if we have a public trust doctrine that defines where the curtilage is of what's public and what's private, then I would submit that really is the law that of the land, and particularly for Rhode Island. And I do understand the intent of what your bill is after, which is a cleanup provision on penalties and all. I get that, and I think it's a brave measure by you, and I respect your analysis and the detail you've gone into on it. Just really curious about where that public trust doctrine is defined on the land, and I'll have to do a little research myself. I know that there's an actual number to how high it goes, and I think it is contingent upon the tide. It has to be, right? Because it says land submerged just generally, but I think it's contingent upon the tide. I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Any other questions of committee members? Yes, Senator Reptakis.
A real quick question for the Senator. Looking at all the emails I received and a lot of cases going back and forth, Narragansett versus, I forgot who it was. Basically, right now, if I wanted to, say, walk down a beach in Narragansett, whether it's low tide or high tide. So what is happening right now, because of the current statute, am I prohibited, say I want to walk down a stretch of maybe 30 houses. I'm just walking, I'm not going to stop, because I saw some of the emails, they were complaining that people are going to stop playing volleyball and they're going to start camping out and building campfires. So basically right now, am I still allowed to walk up and down the beach, regardless, every property owner going, say, the length of whatever, a mile in Narragansett? Am I allowed to do that now?
Thank you. Oh, if I may, Madam Chair.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yes, you may.
Thank you for the question. So, one, just as if this bill were to go into effect, it would be the same thing as it is now, which is that first you would need to make sure to be accessing that shoreline through a public access point. So, it would never be okay to cut across somebody's lawn to get down to the beach. But say, you are, entering onto Narragansett Town Beach, for example, and then you hang a left and you're walking by, some of those private properties, you're walking by the Dunes Club. Yes, walking along the shore. Again, right now, that publicly accepted standard is up to the mean high tide line over the last 18.6 years, you're covered. You can walk, you can fish, you can gather seaweed, you can swim, all of those things are okay. Again, the issue exists where that boundary is just not clearly defined. So if you had a property owner who thought you were a little bit too high up on the sand, say it was high tide and you were kind of walking right above it, that property owner might choose to call the police, and then that's where things escalate. The additional thing that happens is that often what you will see now is private property owners will put out, sawhorses across the beach with no trespassing signs. They'll put up, orange construction fencing, kind of perpendicular to the shoreline to block accessing, no trespassing, and those types of things are kind of escalating this tension of, are we allowed to do things like just walk along the shore? So to answer your question, yes, you would be able to do that. However, there is a lot of subjectivity, regarding whether or not a property owner might choose to call the police.
And what your bill does, what's going to happen is I assume that a lot of property owners are calling the police and either filing a complaint. So you want to make sure that also that trying to define the boundary, I think, is very important, number one. But at the same time, you don't want to keep, every time they call the police, they could be also fined, correct? For just walking up and down the beach. And, okay, I get the gist of the bill. Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. Senator Demario, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Next up is Senate Bill number 308 by Senator Archambault, an act relating to animals and animal husbandry, cruelty to animals. Senator Archambault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This act would prohibit a person convicted of unnecessary cruelty to animals from owning or exercising control of an animal for life and be subject to a fine of $1,000 for each violation of this act. Any animal involved in the offense would be forfeited to the Rhode Island Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It may sound extreme, but I talk often about prosecuting cases. I prosecuted a whole bunch of animal cruelty cases, and there's a phenomenon out there where some folks will have multiple animals, and they'll be exceptionally cruel to one to the point where it's reprehensible. You turn your stomach, and then the other animal gets all the grace in the world. I don't still fully understand that, but it's a phenomenon. But in those cases where there's extreme cruelty to animals, enough to be arrested, charged criminally, brought to court, and prosecuted for it, this bill would apply. I'll answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions of Senator Archambault? Seeing none at this time, Senator Reptakis, would you like to be recorded in the affirmative on the bills that we held for further study earlier this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, please.
Thank you, Clerk. If you would record him, Senator Reptakis, in the affirmative on that vote, it doesn't change the outcome. Thank you. Next is Senate Bill number 309, also by Senator Archambault, an act relating to animals and animal husbandry, cruelty to animals. Senator Archambault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize. I think I have my bills backwards. So please accept my testimony that I gave a second ago for the testimony on 309. This one, strike that. The testimony I gave a second ago should have applied to 308. And anyway, this bill will be on 309. Any person who's convicted of or enters into a plea in a particular offense here, as the language makes changes, would be subject to increased penalties for animal cruelty. And if you're convicted of animal cruelty, you could be, quite frankly, if it was in the presence of a minor, imprisoned for a term not exceeding 5 years. It would change it to being a felony and be liable for treble damages. And that's based upon the psychological effect of a child witnessing that cruelty. And if the individual was convicted of, or were convicted of animal cruelty in the presence of that child, it could also increase the fines up to $2,000. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions of Senator Archambault on this bill? Seeing none at this time, thank you, Senator. The next bill we have is Senate Bill number 531 by Chair Chacon, an act relating to animals and animal husbandry, cruelty to animals. It prohibits the sale or offer for sale of cosmetic product by cosmetic manufacturer and supplier of cosmetic ingredients using animal testing with penalty. I believe there needs to be some additional work on this bill. That's the message I got from the senator. If there are no questions, I will move to the next bill, Senate Bill number 534 by President Ruggiero, an act relating to animals and animal husbandry, authorizes the potential appointment of pro bono attorneys, supervised law students, and from a list maintained by the DEM to act as animal advocates in animal cruelty and abuse cases at the court's discretion to serve the interests of justice. Don't know if we have any, and we do have public testimony on this later on in the evening. Any questions? Next, we'll move to Senate Bill number 601 by Leader Algier, an act relating to animals and animal husbandry, authorizes the potential appointment of, it's the same bill, essentially, of pro bono attorneys, supervised law students, and from a list maintained by the DEM to act as animal advocates in animal cruelty and abuse cases at the court's discretion. Any questions? If not, we will move to the final bill, Senate Bill number 806 by Senator Archambault, an act relating to criminal offenses, Trade in Animal Fur Act. Senator Archambault, if you want to explain that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill was put in to prohibit people from engaging in what they have defined as these commercial operations where animals are raised solely for the production of their fur. We don't have any in Rhode Island. I did get a call from someone in the DEM with some proposed amendments to the bill to carve out an exception for those people that perhaps may be lawfully trapping, have the license to lawfully trap, which has been going on since the beginning of time. And so we need to have a look at that. I need to have a further discussion, and I'll reach out to the sponsors of the bill and see what we can do on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions? And I believe I've just been reminded, I believe I skipped over Senate Bill number 319. I'm sorry, Senator Archambault, an act relating to animals and animal husbandry, cruelty to animals. That's an additional bill of yours I inadvertently skipped over. Would you like to explain that bill? Senate Bill 319.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yes, please. This act would authorize a law enforcement officer or animal control officer to hold an animal confined in a motor vehicle for up to 72 hours pending a district court hearing as to the medical costs, fees, charges, and surrender of the animal. 72 hours may seem like a long time, but I can tell you with certain cases, I had an animal cruelty case dragged on for 2 years, and so 72 hours is a very short period of time for an animal to be in the care and custody of a facility that deals with animals all the time. And I take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Senator Archambault on this one? Okay, I think that gets us through the sponsor portion of this evening's bills. Now we'll take testimony from the public. For those members of the public who are signed up to testify, if you would kindly state your name, introduce yourself, the bill number you are testifying on, especially if you have more than one bill that you're testifying on. We do have close to 60 witnesses signed up to testify this evening. With our late start this evening and an effort to be fair with our time and resources, I would ask that the public keep their comments to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And I do encourage our witnesses to send us supplemental written testimony if you need more than the 3 minutes and 30 seconds of time allotted this evening. And I do thank you for your cooperation in advance. So with that, I am going to move up Senate Bill 194 first. We have one witness to testify on Senate Bill 194, which is Whip De La Cruz's bill. I believe we have Leah Donaldson from the town of Burrillville on the line. Good evening. Welcome to the committee. Ms. Donaldson from the town of Burrillville.
Good evening.
Yes, you have 3 minutes and 30 seconds for your testimony on Bill 194.
Okay, thank you. As you know, my name is Leah Donaldson, and this is the Senate Bill 194, which is the legislation creating the EFSB board was created in 1986 by the General Assembly, and the EFSB is the board that grants or denies permits to build major energy facilities, including non-generating facilities like transmission lines and substations, and generating facilities like power plants. And the EFSB can permit, it does permit facilities in every city and town in Rhode Island. So this legislation affects all of us. So I am an attorney. I work with the town of Burrillville, and I was part of a stakeholder working group that met from August 2019 through February 2020. And the goal of the working group was to reach a consensus on updating this legislation, because everyone involved, we might not agree on how best to update the legislation, but all the stakeholders agree that the enabling legislation, it needs to be updated. It's outdated and it's not fully doing what we need it to do for Rhode Island. So I was the person who helped to draft the language of the bill as we met. We would draft certain sections of the bill as we went through the working group, and to update different portions of the EFSB legislation. And so this bill addresses a lot of those issues. I did submit some written testimony that you'll have there, I hope. And just to quickly go into some things, I know that Senator De La Cruz did a great job of introducing this as well, so I don't want to repeat what she's already said. One thing that is important about this bill, we've introduced updates to this a few years in a row, and one of the things we've changed based on the stakeholder process is that we've we have bifurcated the process now so that large major generating facilities like power plants are going to be, that process is being updated by this legislation, and major non-generating facilities like transmission lines, we don't want to try to fix what isn't broken, and we understand that that process is working right now. So most of these changes involve power plant applications as opposed to the more frequently used non-generating process before the EFSB. It's also worth noting that this bill would create a hearing officer role that allows for certain hearings to be conducted before a hearing officer, which would create some expediency before the board. And this also clarifies the materials that would need to be submitted for a complete application. What we found in the most recent docket was that there was a lot of time wasted trying to track down materials from the applicant. And this would allow the applicant to know what needs to be produced so that everything can move quickly once the docket is opened. Let's see, there's also, it's worth noting, of course, that since every municipality in the state is affected by, potential siting of these things, it is a complex, expensive, and time-consuming process. And for a municipality to participate, they need an attorney, preferably one with public utility, regulatory, and licensing experience. And you also need experts and things like that. So there's very few, if any, Rhode Island municipalities that are in a financial position to handle these expenses. So this update, Senate Bill 194, creates the ability for the municipalities to have input, and it makes sure that they're not excluded from the process due to budgetary constraints, which is important because participation by the municipality is important to make sure that whatever applications are before the EFSB are fully vetted and in the way that they'll affect those affected communities.
Thank you for your testimony.
Sure, thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yes, just let's check it and see if we have any committee members that have any questions for you at this time. Any committee members have questions? No, we don't see any questions at this time, and I thank you for your testimony.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the time.
Of course. Okay, next we'll move, that was our only witness on Senate Bill 194. We will now move to Senate Bill 506 by Senator Picard. Welcome to the committee. We have Stephen Brown on the line, and I believe you are testifying on 4 bills. We do have a time limit of 3.5 minutes, but we'll extend it to 5 since you've got 4 bills you're testifying on.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Stephen Brown from the ACLU of Rhode Island. First, I want to note I will be sending in corrected written testimony. I did get some of the numbers of the bills mixed up, so I'll correct those numbers for everybody.
Sure.
But the substance of our testimony stands. I want to focus in the few minutes I have on S537 and 852, which are the bills which would establish a reapportionment commission for this upcoming 10 years. Obviously, one of the most important bills that the legislature adopts is the redistricting every 10 years. And we think it's really important that any commission and the role of the commission in drawing those lines must be focused on promoting transparency, ensuring fairness, implementing as best as possible the principle of one person, one vote, and garnering confidence from the public in the final results of the work, because the right to vote is just so essential to the democratic process. There are 4 particular issues that I want to very quickly go over that we think are important to be included in any bill establishing this commission. One is making sure that the Federal Voting Rights Act is implemented as vigorously as possible to ensure that residents of color are adequately and appropriately represented in the redistricting process. In that regard, we strongly support the language that's in S537 that specifically addresses the rights of racial and language minorities to have equal opportunity to participate in the political process. There was a lawsuit that took place 2 censuses ago, and we hope it doesn't happen again, to address the issue of proper representation for racial minorities. So we hope that that will be high on the Commission's agenda. The second issue has to do with transparency, making sure that the public has access to the records that the Reapportionment Commission is using and looking at in coming up with the line drawing. At the last redistricting, the ACLU and other public interest groups that were carefully monitoring and the progress of the Commission were stymied on a number of occasions in getting access to certain informational records. And for that reason, we support language that's in 537 that would specify the public's access to that information in a more clear way than S852. Third, while we know that the reapportionment process is always going to be political to some extent, partisan gerrymandering should be avoided as much as possible. There's language in 537 that seeks to prevent political gerrymandering to the greatest extent possible, and we hope that that language is included in any resolution that the legislature adopts. And then finally, one issue that is not addressed in any of the bills being considered today, but that we think is really important, is addressing the problem of prison gerrymandering. Just a few weeks ago, your committee heard testimony on a bill by Senator Quezada that's designed to eliminate this problem. The way it works right now, extra representation is given to people who live near the ACI because of the fact that inmates at the ACI are being counted in that district as opposed to where they come from, even though under state voting law, they vote from where they come from and not from the ACI. We think that the malapportionment that occurs there is really inappropriate. There are many states across the country that are addressing this issue of prison gerrymandering. 10 or 11 states already have banned it. A few hundred municipalities have banned it. We sincerely hope that the committee will consider addressing this issue, incorporating Senator Quezada's bill into the Commission bill so that it has the authority to prevent prison gerrymandering from taking place when they draw these lines. With that, I know that was a lot of information. I hope you will look at our written testimony. Just ignore the numbers of the bills, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that people have.
Thank you, Steve. You're always concise in your testimony, and we appreciate that. Do any committee members have any questions of Steve? Yes, Senator Raptakis does. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, just one quick question. You said in your testimony that 10 years ago, that during the district commission, you said, quote, if I'm wrong, that obtaining information, they were stymied from getting that information. They were blocked. Was there an issue with trying to obtain information regarding or the commission, or was it public individuals trying to obtain information?
No. It was public individuals. It was organizations like the ACLU and Common Cause that had been looking for some of the data that was being gathered and used to draw the lines, particularly as it related to ensuring racial fairness in the line drawing, and we simply were not able to get it. We made a number of efforts to get it and could not. And what S537 does is it says that almost all the information that the commission is using, that any of the contractors are using in drawing lines or consultants are using, will also be accessible to the public with certain limitations. But simply relying on the Access to Public Records Act, that was used as a barrier to some extent to get that information. And language in 537 would eliminate that barrier so there is greater public access to what is being used in drawing the lines.
Sure, and that's a good analogy, because nobody should be blocked from trying to obtain information, especially when you're trying to create a district, especially with the census. So thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions of committee members? Seeing none at this time, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Sanchez. You are testifying on Senate Bill 537,
Yes,
which...
I am.
Yes, and you have 3 minutes and 30 seconds for testimony. You may begin.
Okay. All right, great. It'll be shorter than that, but thank you so much. I appreciate your time. My name is Enrique Sanchez. I represent the BLM RI PAC and Providence Democratic Socialists of America. I'm here in support of Senate Bill 537, Special Commission to Reappointment. I would like to thank our senators who are supporting this bill, presenting this bill before the Senate. Yeah, I mean, this bill that would create a special commission of 18 members, 13 members of the General Assembly, and leave the available spots open to the general public, to public citizens, private citizens of the community, to allow more transparency, more open dialogue, more of a community relationship to be on top of this commission. We cannot allow the political machine, the political establishment, right-wing establishment, the conservative establishments, the neoliberal establishments of taking control of this commission. We have seen this time and time after, time and time again. They always redistrict districts, which helps them push for a more, more establishment commission, and this hurts up-and-coming leaders, candidates who are looking to become elected leaders, elected officials before the General Assembly. So, yes, I mean, we have to push for this redistricting process that is much less going to be able to, prone to corruption. We have to be more transparent with our community, with our state, or with our residents of the state. Let's give folks an opportunity to run for office, because unless we don't change the way that we handle this, the political establishment, the political machine is going to continue doing the same thing over and over again, and keep pushing for bills and policy that are going to hurt working class people of all backgrounds, color, gender, etc. So let's push for this bill. Let's bring more transparency, more dialogue, and let's allow our general public to have a say on this table, because that's it, folks. People are struggling. We're coming off a pandemic. People are economically struggling, and we need to push for policy that's going to benefit working class people and people of color and poor people, and we know that the political establishment, the political machine, has not been doing this for the last several decades. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanchez, for your testimony. Any questions of this witness? Seeing none at this time, thank you again for your testimony, sir. Welcome to the committee. If you could state your name, please, and the bill you're testifying on.
Yes, my name is Claudia Iannotti, and the bill is S527.
You may proceed. You have 3 minutes and 30 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm an East Greenwich resident who was opposed to allowing the medical waste facility at 1600 Division Road in West Warwick. The technology that this facility will be using is totally untested. And I don't believe that this is the area, or actually anywhere in the state of Rhode Island, that they should be using untested technology. Right next door to this facility, there's a daycare. There are 2 ponds next door. There's a business operating in the same building, There are residential neighborhoods there, and there's no buffer zone. The haulers that are going to be hauling in this toxic waste or medical waste are going to be traveling on East Greenwich roads, and if there's an accident that happens, it's going to be the East Greenwich Fire, East Greenwich Police Department who responds. And in the event that there is an accident or there is some human error in the facility itself, and the toxic waste is released, there are a ton of airborne infectious diseases. And I believe that allowing such a facility to operate in our state is irresponsible. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Iannotti. Are there any questions for this witness? Hearing none.
No.
Well, asking the committee if they have any questions for you, ma'am. Hearing none from any of the committee members, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a nice evening.
And thank you. You guys do the same. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye now. Our next caller is John Marion with Common Cause, Rhode Island. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chairman. How are you?
Welcome to the committee. I'm well. How are you? You're welcome to the committee, and you have 5 minutes because you're testifying on a couple of bills, 852 and 864. So you may proceed, John.
Thank you, and thank you to members of the committee. I'm John Marion, representing Common Cause Rhode Island. I'm here to testify in strong support of two bills. First, I want to talk about S-537, which is by Senator Calkin. It, as you know, creates a commission to redraw the state's political boundaries once the redistricting data file is delivered by the Census Bureau this September. As an organization, Common Cause believes that redistricting should be conducted by a commission that is completely independent of the legislature. That's why we also strongly support Chair Oyer's resolution S-864. As she said, unfortunately, it's too late for a constitutional amendment to take effect this cycle. So that's why we're urging you to pass Senator Calkin's bill, S-537, for this cycle, and put S-864 on the ballot for the next cycle. So let me talk about Senator Calkin's bill first. It makes several changes using the framework that the leadership has proposed in 852. It makes several changes. First of all, it makes the so-called public members of the Redistricting Commission actual public members by putting in place strong anti-conflict of interest provisions. Last cycle, there was a lobbyist and a Democratic town chair who were public members. They were representing the political establishment, not the public. Second, Senator Calkin's bill, as Steve Brown explained well, it has a lot of provisions that are designed to shed light on how the commission's work is really done by shedding light on the consultant that the state hires to do the redistricting. As you probably know, Rhode Island has hired the same consultant since 1983. We want to know what the communications are between the consultant and the commissioners, because that is what is really determining how the maps are drawn. So that S-537 would require the commission to state at public meetings what communications are happening in between meetings. Next, 537 also addresses the drastic shift in technology that has occurred in the last decade. It's now possible for any of us to draw census block level redistricting maps using our smartphones. For that reason, the bill requires that the commission accept and publish any maps that it receives from the public. I think this cycle, the commission is going to get far more public maps, not just maps that are drawn on the consultant's computer. It also would require, as Steve mentioned, that underlying data be made public, and relying simply on the Access to Public Records Act would be insufficient. And then the most important feature of 537 are the enhanced criteria that the commission would have to abide by. We feel the leadership's criteria are insufficient. And again, Steve explained some of those. I'm just going to pick on the notion of communities of interest. While for several decades, the leadership's bills have said that the commission must pay attention to communities of interest, it didn't define those things, and we think they need to be defined. Then, and we do in that bill. So lastly, I just want to talk about Senator Chair Oyer's bill, getting my numbers wrong, 864. As she very ably described in her introduction to her bill, it creates a truly independent commission in our state's constitution. And it does that by creating an elaborate process for choosing the commissioners. Again, like Senator Calkin's bill, it screens them for conflicts of interest, but it introduces a lottery system for choosing the members, where members of the public can apply for the commission, and then they're chosen by lottery, and then the initial group of commissioners chooses the rest of the commissioners. This is the practice in California, and it's been very successful. Last cycle, 27,000 Californians applied to be on their commission. People want to be a part of this process, and they deserve to be a part of the process. Similarly, Chair Oyer's bill has enhanced criteria and enhanced transparency that we think are really, really necessary as part of this process. So those are just a couple of ways that S537 and S864 can improve redistricting. So I refer you to our extensive written comments that are before you, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Marion from any members of the committee? Hearing none. John, thank you very much for your testimony. You have a nice evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. We're moving on now to Senate Bill 852, and our caller is Ginger Jackson Glake from the Prison Policy Initiative. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Hi, Ms. Jackson Glake. I'm not sure if I pronounced that.
That's right.
Thank you for correcting me.
Jackson Gleish, thank you.
Yes, thank you. You have 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and you may proceed.
Thank you, members of the committee, for this opportunity to testify in favor of amending Senate Bill 852 to ensure that it promotes equal representation. My name is Ginger Jackson Gleish. I am Policy Counsel at the Prison Policy Initiative. My comments this evening are also reflected in written testimony that we have submitted, and they will also echo some of the concerns raised by Steve Brown of the ACLU. Before the committee today is Senate Bill 852, which would create a redistricting commission and set out the criteria by which district lines will be drawn in the upcoming redistricting cycle. As explained in detail in the written testimony that we have submitted, we are concerned that the bill would unintentionally enforce the practice of prison gerrymandering, which distorts equal representation by counting incarcerated people as residents of the correctional facilities where they are detained rather than as residents of their legal home addresses. Critically, no matter which of the entities or options being considered by the committee and by the legislature ends up drawing Rhode Island's new districts, if the underlying data utilized by that entity and if the underlying data relied upon by that entity is wrong or inaccurate, the ultimate results will be unequal district populations and distorted districts and representation for the people of Rhode Island. As a result, our written testimony proposes simple language for how the pending redistricting bills could be amended to end prison gerrymandering in Rhode Island, as 10 other states and more than 200 local jurisdictions nationwide have already chosen to do. The procedure for making these adjustments is also outlined in Senate Bill 334, which is not before the committee today. In brief, I urge the committee to adopt the amendment proposed in our written testimony in order to ensure equal representation for all of the people of Rhode Island. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Any questions from any members of the committee? Hearing none, thank you very much. You have a nice evening.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our next bill, which is Senate Bill 864. And we have Randall Rhodes, who also wants to testify on 537. Good evening, Randall.
Yes.
Yes, welcome to the committee. You're testifying on 2 bills. You have 3.5 minutes, and you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Yes, I am in support of these 2 bills. One of them, Senate Bill 537, is just for this year's census, and the other one, the constitutional amendment 864, is a more permanent solution. These bills really make a very good effort to ensure that the public has a voice and that the bills are designed in a way that's for the benefit of voters, not for the districts are designed for the benefit of voters, not for the benefit of politicians. The voting districts should be drawn in order to make sure that the people have fair representation, the communities have fair representation, but unfortunately in many states and even in past in Rhode Island, the politicians have influenced the districting process in a way that's designed to give themselves a favorable district, or worse, to ensure that a candidate does not have a favorable district. So these bills are really important for preventing those abuses. We've seen scandals all around the country, in many Republican states, for instance, where districts are drawn in order to penalize one party and help the other. That should not be the case here. In Rhode Island, it would be possible to have a district where a congressional district where the Republican Party has a reasonable chance of winning, which in some years when the Republican Party has a good chance, a significant minority of the votes, they could win one congressional district if the districts were drawn in a way that would ensure that each party has a chance reflecting their proportion of the votes. But that's not how districts are drawn now. Our 2 congressional districts have been drawn so that Democrats dominate each of the 2 districts, and that's just not fair. And even worse, the politicians who are influential within one party can draw districts to benefit those of their colleagues who they like and not others. That just should not be allowed. So I understand that the bill that's backed by the Speaker and Senate President does allow some room for public hearings, but it still puts the process too much under the influence of elected officials, and it's the bill by the Senate President and Speaker does not have clear criteria for how the districts are drawn to ensure that the districts are drawn in an objective way according to priorities that put voters first. And both the bills that I support do have a clear set of priorities that ensure that the considerations used in drawing districts are the right ones, considerations that put voters first, not considerations that put politicians first. So because I, like many other people, believe in people-powered fair maps, I am very much in favor of both these bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. Perfect timing. Are there any questions from any members of the committee for Randall? No, thank you, Randall. Always appreciate your testimony. You have a nice evening. Moving on now to Senate Bill 527. Our next caller is Kevin Budris with the Conservation Law Foundation. Good evening, Kevin Budris.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome to the committee. You're testifying on 527 and 254. You have 3.5 minutes, and you may begin.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Archibald and members of the committee. My name is Kevin Budris, and I work for Conservation Law Foundation. I'm testifying on both Senate Bill 527 and Senate Bill 254. Conservation Law Foundation supports Senate Bill 527, and we oppose Senate Bill 254. Bill 527 would prohibit all high-heat waste processing facilities in Rhode Island. It is effectively a ban on waste burning in all of its forms. And I would like to thank Senator Verde for sponsoring this vitally important legislation.
Bill 254 would have the opposite effect. It would open Rhode Island's doors to dangerous climate-damaging technologies like gasification and pyrolysis. It doesn't matter whether you call it incineration, gasification, pyrolysis, or even so-called advanced recycling. Burning waste is toxic. Every single one of these processes release climate-damaging pollutants like carbon dioxide, along with toxics like lead, mercury, dioxins, furans, nitrogen oxides, to name just a few. And despite what the American Chemistry Council and other petrochemical interests would have you believe, plastic burning technologies are not safe and they are not environmentally friendly. And with respect to Senator Lombardo, so-called advanced recycling does mean burning plastics. Every single advanced recycling facility that has been built in this country has at some point been used to turn plastic into fuel. Turning plastic into fuel, then burning that fuel means burning plastic. It has the same pollution profile and climate-damaging impact as incineration. And it is not the answer to our plastics or waste crises. The only way to stop the life cycle of plastics pollution is to look upstream and stop single-use plastics production at its source. And keep in mind that the petrochemical industry is interested in doing anything it can to avoid having to limit plastics production. They would rather burn plastics near our homes and our schools and pretend that they're a part of the solution. These supposedly new technologies are not a godsend or a silver bullet. People have been burning trash for centuries, and it has always been toxic. It has always been dangerous. Moreover, burning waste in any form flies in the face of the all-important Act on Climate. We cannot meet our climate goals if we're burning waste or burning plastic and propping up the fossil fuel and petrochemical industries through processes like pyrolysis and gasification. The City of Providence has already taken action and banned all high-heat waste facilities, and it's now time for the state to follow suit and protect all Rhode Islanders and our climate. Again, Conservation Law Foundation supports Senate Bill 527, which would ban all high-heat facilities, and we oppose Senate Bill 254, which would have the opposite effect and open Rhode Island up to burning plastics. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Are there any questions from any members of the committee for this witness? Yes, Senator Raptakis.
Not a question for the witness, but do we have any other witnesses that are going to be testifying? I know there were some that weren't going to be present, those that were, I guess, in favor of Senator Lombardo's bill, but I'd like to question those witnesses, but I guess we're not going to have that opportunity. Do we have any letters, what they exactly said regarding the bills?
Senator Raptakis, there are 12 more witnesses on this bill alone, some opposed, some supporting, so you certainly will get a chance for that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. You have a nice evening.
Thank you, you too.
You. Our next caller is Greg Garrett. Good evening, Greg.
Yes.
Always good to hear from you. You may proceed. You have 3.5 minutes.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Greg Garrett. I live in Providence. I would like to testify on Bill S527, and the opposite of this bill is S254. 254 is a horrible bill. It will actually do major damage to our state. Kevin Boudreaux talked about all of the things that's going on. I can't improve much upon this. I will say that I have lived in a community that was targeted for something like this. And it's a horrible thing to do to a community. It just, the community has to spend all of their time organizing against the big money interests. And if they win, it still exhausts them. But it makes their community stronger. But if they lose, their kids get sick. I mean, that's what happens. These things pollute badly. So a bill to encourage us to do this is insane. A bill to say no more is the only thing that makes common sense. We have a massive climate problem. The chemical companies, the oil companies, they want us to buy more plastic rather than stop making plastic. There's a lot of stuff we make out of plastic we shouldn't even be making. There's a lot of stuff we make out of plastic we could make some way other than that and be better. We have to stop making plastic. We have to stop drilling for oil, because otherwise, you know, you were talking about shore access earlier. There's not going to be any shore to access in 50 years. You know, this is the kind of stuff we're facing. The American Chemical Council has always done things like this. They tell us, you know, you can't make clean burning cars. You can't make, you know, clean systems. It's time for us to throw the money lenders out of the temple and start doing the right thing in Rhode Island. So, ban pyrolysis, ban incineration, ban high heat waste, and definitely do not let anything else in. The one other thing I will say is the Environment Council of Rhode Island has sent in written testimony and wanted me to just say, you know, the Environment Council of Rhode Island supports 527 and strongly opposes 254. Thank you.
Greg, thank you. I always appreciate your testimony because you walk your talk. So any members of the committee have any questions for Mr. Garrett? No, thank you, Greg. You have a nice evening.
Thank you. Take care.
Too. Our next caller is Joshua Jarbo. Good evening, Mr. Jarbo.
Yes, this is he.
Yes, welcome to the committee. You have 3.5 minutes and you may proceed.
Hello, Senator.
Yeah.
My name is Dr. Hello.
Yes, you have 3.5 minutes. Welcome to the committee. You may proceed.
Okay, hi. My name is Dr. Joshua Jarbo. I'm an emergency medicine physician. I'm going to... hello?
Yes, you're on. We can hear you,
sorry.
doctor. Go ahead. That's okay.
Yeah. So I'm an emergency medicine physician. I do not work for a plastic waste company. I'm not an environmentalist. I have a threefold interest in this. I want to give some input because I understand the organic chemistry behind it. I'm a physician, so I understand medical consequences. And I'm a big fisherman, and I hate seeing all the plastic garbage in the bay. So pyrolysis is an interesting concept. I did hours of research on this. Particularly, there are 2 EPA assessments in 2012 and 2020, and then there is a National Renewable Energy Lab on pyrolysis, which was done in 2006, a little old, but it's still fairly up to date. And I just wanted to tell the committee what I found. So it is a new technology. What I found is that there are 15 plants in the U.S. Only 6 are open, although Senator Lombardo said 9. I found 6. The others are closed because of lawsuits, failed environmental inspections, bankruptcy, and fraud. And then this is the data I found. They produce chemicals which smell, which is hydrogen sulfide, which is a rotten egg smell. One of the other chemicals is nitrogen dioxide, which is the red color that gives Southern California air. It's that red color when you fly in. And also hydrogen chloride gas, which turns into hydrochloric acid when it hits water. And there are also carcinogen byproducts. So 2 of these plants that are operating, one is in Oregon and one in Niagara Falls. The air quality emission data showed organic compounds that were volatile, hydrocarbons, which are cancer-causing, and carbon monoxide emissions, which we know they all make. I really think that our state is too small for these type of facilities. It's completely unvetted technology, and the data is out there. All you have to do is type in 2012 EPA Assessment on Waste Management or National Renewable Energy on Pyrolysis. There's hundreds of pages, but it's there, and I suggest if you have time, everyone look at it before you make a decision. So I am pro Bill 527, and I oppose Bill 524. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Are there any questions for this witness from any members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you very much. You have a nice evening.
Thank you.